On this week's episode of the Peach Live podcast, we are joined by Jarrod Tocci. Come along as we talk about his new Jeep Gladiator overland rig and some sneak peeks for his channel. Join us each week as we talk to inspiring and creative individuals and learn just how big tiny living can really be. We hope you enjoy this episode of the Peach Live podcast. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for new episodes each week. Awesome. Well, I mean, let's start right away with what you're going with right now. Right now, you're working on custom kind of overland rig. I think it's kind of cool too, because one of the things I was thinking this month was I was like, I want a van builder. I want somebody that's building vans. I think there's a lot of questions I have that I'd like to know. And then at the same time, I really wanted somebody that had built an overland rig on this month. Well,
I sold my van back in July of 2020, and it was right at the obviously kind of a few months into this whole shit that we're going through. And I decided to make the jump because I wanted to settle down somewhere, right? And then I wanted to build a container home. And that's still on my list of things that I want to do. Like, I'm definitely going to do a container home sometime in the future. Whether it's 2021, 2, 3, doesn't know. But I started looking into land and developing land, and then I went to banks, and banks laughed at me because I make enough, but they wanted like multiple years of 1099s or taxes, and because I'm self-employed. So they didn't like me at all. So then I was like, well, I'm gonna have to pay for everything cash, is what it came down to. During that whole process, I knew I wanted to, as I was settling down, I didn't want to get another van right away. And a childhood like dream of mine was to have a Jeep Wrangler. And I love Jeep Wranglers, and I think they're the perfect four-season vehicle.
oh yeah.
You got the tops off in the summertime, and you 4x4, snow, winter, all day long. So I wanted a pickup truck though as well. Well, I think it was 2019, they came out with a Gladiator. Like, how am I not going to get a Gladiator now?
I'd been waiting for years for them to come out with that, like from because they came out with the concept versions of it like so many years ago, and for all that time I had just been waiting. I love them.
Oh, it is such a cool truck. It's long, it's definitely longer than most vehicles, right? Like, what the selling point for me was, I was this close to getting a Tacoma TRD Pro. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna go test drive them both in the same day. So I went out, test drove the Tacoma, and then I went and test drove the Jeep. And that's actually what sold me. I didn't like how the Tacomas drove, which is funny. And
That surprises me.
it surprised me too. And I really thought I was dead set on Tacomas. And then I drove the Jeep, and I was like, this is a truck. Like, I felt like I was driving a Jeep, and I felt like I was driving a truck. With the Tacoma, I felt like I was driving a Camry, and I didn't like that. So I was like, you know what? I got to go with the Gladiator. So glad I did. And then I actually had this plan. I sold my van in July. I had this plan probably back in January, of the year, during I had my van. I knew all of this was going to happen. Now, I don't voice that to my audience because, like, when I say something like that, they want it tomorrow instead of like me knowing that it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
My original plan was to actually be in my van for another year and then do all of this.
Okay.
With everything that happened, I was like, I'm not going to be able to enjoy van life to its fullest. Now, obviously things happened and things changed, and I could have, but I was like, this whole pandemic and COVID expedited everything that I was planning on doing anyways. So I decided to sell, and then I was like, I'm going to build an overlanding rig. And originally I was just going to do something really simple, rooftop tent. I contacted a couple different companies I wanted to not work with. I was just going to buy their product and I didn't like any of them that I was looking at. And then one of them I liked the most, they told me that it was a 6-month backlog and they weren't even going to take orders. And I took that as not like insulting, but like I waited a couple months and I never heard from them. And I was like, as a person that comes from customer service, I would have kept up with everybody that was inquiring about my product. However, they never did. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to build and design my own.
Love
And
it.
I did that. And then one thing led to another. If anybody knows me and knows my vans from the past, especially my second one, I tend not to do simplistic. I tend to go above and beyond. So this one, I definitely built a like two slides, and one of the slides is enough to house enough people. Like it's a kitchen, and like, yeah, I don't need anything else.
Yeah, you're really doing like way above and beyond like for this. But it's, I mean, when you're building it yourself like this and you can, go through every little,
Yeah.
every little thing and figure out how to best utilize that particular portion. Because when you're, I mean, even more than a van, when you're doing any kind of overlanding rig, like you're working with even less space at that point. Like,
Right. Oh yeah. And it's funny, I went smaller and smaller and smaller. My first van was a Ram ProMaster 159 wheelbase, which is about 12 by 6. The second van was a Sprinter 144, which is about like a little over 10 feet by a little under 6 feet. So I went smaller. And then now I'm going with a Jeep Gladiator that has, the penthouse and the rooftop tent. And then it's all of my living is below that in the truck slider. So it's a very interesting. I keep going smaller and smaller. What's nice about the Gladiator is it's forcing me to be outside more.
yeah,
It's forcing me to be one with nature. It's forcing me to do stuff outside. It's forcing me to catch that fresh air. With the van, it can, like, you can do that, but like if you want to stay inside your van all day, you can. You know.
it's like each like step size up you get with rig, it kind of just does kind of create more and more space inside, and then so people tend to just be inside more when they have it. So
Yeah, and as you live in an RV, this. Just like, I don't know. I just felt I wanted to be outside a little bit more, and yeah, I don't even know where I was going.
it's all good. But yeah, so are you how close are you to finishing up the Jeep? I mean, it should be real close.
Today is Thursday. My goal originally was this Sunday. So I actually have to drive to Portland tomorrow and do it. Well, I texted my buddy and I was like, "Are we still on for tomorrow?" But I have to drive to Portland, which is 3.5 hours from where I am right now, do a video with him because he's delivering a van, a really nice van. And he called me around 11 a.m. noon today. And he's like, "Hey, do you want to drive to Portland and do this video?" And I was like, "Oh, damn it." So I'm taking tomorrow off. So it's probably going to be done by Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
And I plan to have it mounted inside the Jeep the latest Thursday because I'm leaving Sunday.
Where's the maiden trip?
So I'm headed up to Seattle. I haven't announced this on my YouTube, so I don't care if I do it here, but I'm headed up to Seattle to do a video with a company called Cabana.
Okay.
And they do van rentals, but it's more for like hotels on wheels.
Okay, nice.
And a very cool company, very cool concept. And I'm really excited to just kind of check them out. They no just I don't hide anything. They gave me a couple free nights, and I'm gonna test it out. I think I'm a pretty proficient at stealth parking. So um I'm gonna stealth park in the city of Seattle in their van, and yeah, I'm gonna kind of document that whole trip. So as I'm going up there, I'm probably gonna stay on the eastern side of the Cascades. So I'm in Bend, Oregon. I'm gonna drive north up into Washington. My buddy Christian and I, and possibly another friend of ours, Samantha, we're gonna all camp out somewhere in the middle of Washington, in between Bend and Seattle, and
Okay.
then we'll camp for like 2 nights, and then I Samantha might come with me to Seattle, and Christian has to come back and go to work. So that's the plan right now.
Nice. Well, that'd be a good, like, first kind of test run of it.
Yeah.
Because it's like anything you build. You after you get it out, you're gonna find all the little things that work or can be adjusted, be tweaked a little bit.
Not only that, I hope it stays together. Like,
Yeah, I'm interested in the quick connect system for the water. Like
it's
that
actually really easy. It's
yeah,
super easy.
that was an interesting concept when we were talking about it. I was like, man, like I'm surprised it's not more common.
Yeah, so the water is interesting because that was probably it was one of those things that like I started building and I didn't have it figured out. I take that back. That's probably a solid 60% of everything I did not have planned out. Um, or excuse me, I take that back. 40% of it it was not planned. 60% was planned.
Okay.
I knew the general design and everything I wanted. I didn't know how the electrical was all going to work. I didn't know how the water was all going to work. So that was kind of like in the moment trial and error. I love when people ask me, why can't you release plans on this or how to do that? It's like, because I don't freaking know. That's why I haven't done it yet. And I have to physically do it for me to make the plans of it all. I did the same thing with my vans. I built my vans as I went. I had the general layout on a SketchUp. But you change so much in the process of building. I know that you and I talked about building your studio. It's like, how many things did you change like in a moment's notice?
If I showed you the plans, the original plans that I had like purchased, and then what it looks like now, you'd be like, well, the general shape is there. Everything else is different.
And that's so funny, and I'm glad you said that because like everybody asks me to do, because I have an architectural background, I have an architectural engineering background, so I'm trained in CAD and that kind of stuff. And they're like, hey, can I pay you for plans? And I'm like, I'm going to give you a general, do not follow, the actual measurements. I'm just going to give you the general look of it.
Like a layout plan. Like
Yeah. And I was like, I'll do that all day for you. And that's why I was like, I'll charge you a couple $100 because it's not going to take me that long to do. And they're like, no, I want this. I want dimensions. No, I can't do it because you're going to change so much. And with a small micro inch here, inch there, 17 other things change. So I'm getting a little passionate. So I'm
no
talking a
problem.
little
People don't
intensely.
realize that and I've talked to some people about that too. And that's the difference, like between, especially I've talked to a lot of bus builds and then van builds, is between the two, you have a lot, like with the bus, you have a lot of freedom. You can
Yep.
really kind of freely customize it as you go. But those vans are so, you're like you said, every inch of space that you move, something else has to adjust. So
And
yeah.
it's funny, you brought up a good point with, um, a bus compared to a van. You have a lot more room for error, right? I actually felt that when I started working with aluminum, which is what I started working with the Jeep, the 80/20 or extruded. People call it all different stuff. I haven't worked with extruded aluminum before. I feel that wood is way more forgiving than, extruded aluminum. You have to be spot on. You can't be an eighth of an inch off or a quarter of an inch off. With wood, it's like, whatever. I'll just, I'll use some caulking or I'll use some whatever, like Sikaflex or sealant or something like that to kind of fix my mistake, which isn't really a big a mistake. You can't do that with aluminum. You have to be absolutely correct with it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to see, especially first timers doing that kind of stuff. I mean, with you, imagine you've done, after you do a few things, you kind of get a little more experience each time, and
Yeah. I mean, that's why so well, I'll actually go back to the water thing first. But I will say, had two slides. I built the simpler of the two slides first to get used to the aluminum. And then the second slide, I was like, okay, I know exactly how this thing works. And it's funny, I think my first slide turned out better. But the water, the quick connects, I had I bought Rotopex, which are those like everybody uses them in overlanding. It's those things that like you see attached onto the back of the rigs, like over like they're really cool. They're called Rotopex, Rotopax, I think. Anyways, I bought like a bunch of those, like 3 of them, and it turns out I'm not even going to use them. But I was originally going to have my design originally had the water attached to the slider. Now I'm like, why am I doing that? So I went out and bought, I should show them to you, but they're like big military plastic jugs, like
Yeah.
5 gallons, or 20 liters is what they say on them. And all I did was, it's the simple way to do it. If anybody wants to do this for a van, like you just run a tube into the container itself. And I bought these quick connect plastic pieces online for like $10 or something. And you drill a hole through the cap of the container, and then the quick connect, they just connect that way. That's super easy. And then you just run a tube, into your sink and call it a day.
It's genius. It really is.
Thank you. So now I can put that water jug on the ground, and when I'm moving or I'm packing up my camp, I can just throw it into the back of the truck, or I can throw it into the bed of the truck. It doesn't matter. And then that also, if I go out into winter camping, because I wanted to keep in mind that I am going to winter camp. Like I want to be out in freezing temperatures. I know it sounds stupid, but like I'm going to be cold, and I want to make sure that my water doesn't freeze. So I wanted to make sure that like it's portable where I can not have it frozen, and then when during the day I can have water.
Yeah, yeah, because you just disconnect those and those will be like
Yep.
put away and put inside. So that's wow.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
a little design feature there.
Yeah. It's and that's the, I guess, the biggest difference you got to think about, an overlanding rig compared to a van. In a van, you don't worry about any of that stuff, and it's interesting because my buddy Christian has been building his van out the same time I've been building my Jeep out. And it's just like, I walk into his van, I'm like, hey, how come you're not doing this? And then I think to myself, because you don't have to do that. You're in a van. And I'm like, damn it.
Yeah. Have you noticed any kind of maybe with vans, like any, I don't want to say mistakes, but any kind of design layouts that really tend to be better or work better than others?
I get that question a lot. Um, and I always say it's up to the person, you know. It really depends on what your needs are. And it's funny, I'm actually about to do a workshop in May, at Van Fest about design and layout. Like that's been my specialty.
Yeah.
But I the I usually open up with like, my thought process is going to be way different than your thought process and what your day-to-day life is. Now, if somebody comes to me and says, I'm an outdoorsy freak, I love kayaking, I love mountain biking, I love this, that, whatever, and I need storage, I want storage for all that stuff, then no question, no doubt in my mind, platform bed all day, right?
Yeah, like the garage underneath.
Yep, the platform bed in the back all day long. If you are the adventure junkie, 100%, then you need that. If you want to be stealth, and you want to be only in cities, and you're using that as kind of like a rolling condo, right? Then your design and your layout is going to be way different. You don't necessarily need a platform bed. Maybe you want a futon style, or you want a dinette style, or in my case, I had a Murphy bed style.
Yeah.
So and then it gets down to how lazy you want to be. The Murphy bed for me was, all right, I'll go back. I had a platform bed first, and then I went to Murphy bed.
Yeah.
And the reason I went to Murphy bed was in twofold. One, I wanted to challenge myself. And two, I felt having the bed, when I walk into my van and seeing it, I immediately got tired.
Oh wow, interesting. That
So
would,
I was like, how do I separate myself from like maybe sitting down and getting work done? And then when it's bedtime, or when it's, relaxing time, I can put the bed down and I'm in that mode. And that's why I did the Murphy bed. I wanted to separate space.
and after doing both, how did you find both? And was your thoughts kind of right?
Absolutely. A lot of people are like, you're never going to put your Murphy bed up. And I'm like, you're damn right. Because I made it so easy that you could lift it up and just lock it into place and call it a day. A lot of others have kind of like failed at this. My buddy Shane, he hates the Murphy bed that he made. And I was like, it's not that you did it wrong. It's just that like it was done differently than mine. So he never wanted to put his up or down. Like mine was a 144. It was off the back. Now, the thing is with the Murphy bed, what you sacrifice is storage,
Yeah.
right? So with the platform, you get storage. With the dinette style, if you're lazy and you don't want to convert that every day, do not do a dinette style. The dinette is the table that goes down. So typically, a dinette will have like two benches and then a table in between on like on a telescoping, and the telescoping leg will drop down, and there's your bed.
And a lot of people that do those, they'll have kind of the pass through with those, with that kind of model, right?
Yeah, they can do that exactly. Um, Oddly enough, Christian has that in his van. That literally the guy that's building it right next to me, and and one of my good friends, Sydney, she has it in hers, and it's funny, she never puts it up into the dinette style. So that's why I was saying, like, if you are not lazy, but if you're just like unmotivated to make it into a table every day, you're not going to do it. It's just plain and simple. Like, you know.
And then for people that really need to have like a desk, like an actual work area, I mean, that's, I imagine that's hard if people are trying to do it on, the bed all day.
Exactly. Like some people always say they love working in bed, but for me, it's like make sure that I can't be too comfortable when I'm working, right? Because then I feel like I'm not productive. Now, that's the thing. What I was saying earlier is everybody is different, right? So it's like maybe, you know, Joe or Katie over here, they love working in bed, so they may strive doing that. They may thrive, whatever, making working in their bed and getting stuff done on a computer. Like I just can't do it. That's just me though.
Yeah, and everybody's got you can do a different build for everybody. I mean, I love the difference. I love that with tiny living, I see people with like 8 kids in a huge RV and down,
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
to basically like a small overlanding rig. You can really do anything in between and still be, essentially tiny living.
Yeah, absolutely. I do love that. I mean, I think the most I saw in one vehicle, they had four with a fifth on the way. So they had 5 kids plus 2 adults. So 7 total.
And yeah, there's some crazy, like, just huge families out there. They're traveling full time. I mean, we have three
Yeah.
we have three of us, and I'm like, that's enough in any tiny.
Oh, I didn't even know you had 3.
Yeah, we have a daughter. She's 7.
Oh, wow. And you have a tiny home or you have just the RV?
So we have the RV and then this, which is like 10 by 12. Let's see, we're about to, well, this won't be in the podcast. I'll cut this one out, but we're about
Yeah.
to close on some property, 25
Nice.
acres up in Northern California. So our whole goal with building this was once we close on the property, we get to, we'll pull the RV and we'll have this thing kind of low bedded up on as we into place as we build.
It's funny. I was looking at land like that, and I did find it's better to do a seller financing for many reasons.
Yeah.
But I'm not looking for a crap ton of land like you are. And I originally, and we could talk about this in the podcast, but I was originally going to do one thing, and I still have plans to do it. But everybody that I have talked to of recent, I feel are getting land and doing the tiny home development. Like, how old are you again?
32.
32. If you remember, I've been in van life for over 4 years now, and or am I 5 now? I don't even know. And when I started, it was nothing, right? It was barely in its infancy stages, and now it's kind of skyrocketed to what it is. And I feel like tiny homes they were there back in like the mid 2000s, late 2000s into the teens, and I think we're about to get a massive jump again
Oh
into
yeah.
the tiny home community development.
Yeah, I think they're going to start popping up all over the place. I think that, I mean, a lot of it just comes down to regulations, building regulations. A lot of places, every county has, some different minimum square footage that you have, which is unfortunate that a lot of them are like 600 to 700 square foot, which, yeah, you can still build essentially a tiny home, but I mean, it gets a lot more complicated.
It's just, and that's the other thing that I can't wait to talk to, the audience about, because it's like people don't realize that you have to look at all these zoning requirements and, county requirements even before you purchase land, because you may buy, like I was looking in Portland, you may buy something in Portland and then realize you can only have one dwelling unit.
Yeah. There's so many different like regulations that like, yeah, before buying any land, it's like I've seen so many people, get kind of screwed over and,
Yep.
you know,
So then that's why I'm not changing my direction, but I'm also doing it because I like doing things different, and I'm that kind of an asshole. I will be doing something way different, because I have I probably have like 6 friends right now that are all buying land and just going to be doing tiny home communities, and I'm hats off. I want to do that myself. However, I don't want to be following everybody else's footsteps. So I obviously am coming up with something different. And I will tell everybody on the podcast what my ideas are, but I'm still years away from it happening.
Yeah, it's hard to ever, even like we were talking, it's hard to ever, you never want to give away too much too soon. And like, like you've talked about people's expectations the second you say something. Yeah, I'd love to talk about comedy and your kind of journey into that. I love comedy, and so I think that's pretty interesting and a great idea. I mean, for anybody out there that knows what,
or even if you like podcasts that talk, for comedians, you kind of get what the life is like. You get, how it can be. So I imagine for getting a van, it's having something you can live with on the road. That's amazing. That's kind of a perfect for that lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, I'll can say on your podcast, I don't care, because it's not my channel. um, it's funny. I was just talking to a buddy of mine the other day, and we were talking about me doing another van. And my close friends, the people that I talk to on a daily basis, or even a weekly basis, know a lot of my personal goals and dreams and aspirations, right? So I was talking to him about doing another van, and like when it comes time, because mostly it's Christian, the guy that's here, and he's just like, dude, if you did this in the back of a Jeep, I want to see what your next van is going to be like. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to do another van, because it's like I'm not sleeping. I'm not, like, it's very unhealthy for me. And now I'm getting towards the end, and I'm like, I kind of want to do another van. And
Man, it gets you. It gets you. I swore up and down after this was done. I was like, I will never build something like this again.
yeah,
What it was, I was like, I would pay the extra to have it done. And then a couple weeks later, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not gonna pay somebody else all that extra when I could just. So I get it, man.
yeah. So I think the next van that I do, and I've talked about this to my friends, is I'll probably do some sort of like a traveling hotel on wheels, where it will literally cater to my comedy. And that's only if my comedy starts doing well and I can start making any type of money off of that industry. Um, Obviously, with things that's been happening, it's kind of on the back burner. It has been. But that is going to be changing in the very near future. I'm making arrangements for it to change in my own personal future. But it all started with, as I was actually a valet attendant. I was a valet attendant. I've been a valet since I was 17.
Okay.
And I did it in Boston through college. I made so much money, it wasn't even funny. Well, like we're talking like, and I don't want to say like stripper money, but it's all over TikTok right now, so I can say that. But like stripper money, I was making hand over fist money in Boston. Went to Las Vegas. I worked in multiple hospitality jobs in Las Vegas, and then I went to Los Angeles to pursue acting in 2008. And from 2008 to almost, I guess I was there from 8 to 18. I was jumped around from hospitality gigs to hospitality gigs. I want to say sometime around the end of 2016, going into 17, I was coming out of a really bad relationship. I lived in a bachelor apartment. If anybody knows what a bachelor apartment it is, it's a studio with no kitchen. So it's legitimately a dorm room. It's almost probably the size of your studio that you're in right now. And I had a bathroom. That was it.
Yeah, I had a friend that lived in one in LA one time, and I remember the first time I came over, I was like, "Where is everything?" Because I didn't
Yeah.
they had no kitchen.
It was like it was a pre. That was the last place I lived in, other than this one I'm in right now. That was the last place I lived in before I lived in a van for 3.5 years. And it kind of like people always said it got me ready for van life, and I didn't know it at the time, but yeah, I guess it did. Um, I was working as a valet attendant during that time. I was miserable. I hated my life. I was unhappy with all of the um acting stuff that I was doing, and I wasn't doing much with stand up. I talked a big game, but I wasn't doing much. And I went down to San Diego. I drove down to San Diego to go watch a Red Sox play the Padres. And I'm from Boston. I'm a huge Red Sox fan. And my brother lived in San Diego at the time, and he begged me to watch this video. And I watched this video of this girl living in a van, and I'll be honest, I started crying.
Wow.
And I was like, that's what I need to do. And I didn't know why, I didn't know how, but I just knew I needed to do that. And then I called my dad the next day, and I was like, is this possible? And he's like, fuck yeah, it's possible. And he was like, come back and build it with me. I built one with my dad. And I was like, fuck, now I have to do that. And then I picked up a second job because I knew I needed money.
Yeah.
And I was like, the only way for me to I take this all back. I wasn't a valet attendant yet. I was doing another job. So my second job was my overnight valet shift. So I went back to valeting. I always did that.
Oh
I
man.
always did that, where I would valet for a little while, and then I'd quit for 3 months, and I'd go back to it, and then I'd quit again. I'd go back to it. I just hated the valet industry in Los Angeles.
Oh man.
Anyways,
Imagine.
the second job that I took on, because I needed money to do this project, I estimated that I could save up for 6 months. And I was like, all right, I'm going to work during the day. I was a manager of a company called yummy.com, where we do food delivery service. And it's pretty much just for lazy people sitting at home. We're not like Uber Eats or Postmates. It was legitimately like a store, like a Trader Joe's or like a Whole Foods. We went shopping for you in the store, and then we had drivers deliver you the food.
Wow.
Yeah. The ultimate laziness. Anyways, I was a manager of that company for a long time, and I wanted a second job, so I asked if I could do the mid shift as the manager, so I could work from like 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then I'd sleep for like 2 hours. I'd start my overnight shift at 11 p.m. and work until 7 a.m. And I did that for almost 6 months. And at once I tried to coordinate, so like my days off at the grocery store, I'd work overnight. And then so I would always so I'd only overlap like 2 days of the week,
Okay.
right? 3 days of the week. And I wouldn't be extremely exhausted. And I did that for like 6 months, like I said. And yeah, I just eventually just quit and drove cross country and built out my van. It was and oh, the whole reason all this was the comedy thing.
Yeah.
So during that process, I kind of was like, okay, if I want to take comedy seriously, I need to do this life so I can lower my expenses, was my goal, right? And then I was like, okay, in Los Angeles, anybody who lives in Los Angeles or knows Los Angeles, to get from like Santa Monica to Hollywood is like an hour and a half,
It's terrible.
right? And my thought process was like, okay, well, if I want to do a mic, or if I want to do a set up in the valley or whatever it may be, I've got this van. I could park here, and then I could do a set, and then I could go to a different location. I can maybe wake up for work the next day or something along those lines. That's where my mentality was. So I could take this van and kind of plot myself all over the city of Los Angeles. Well, that was not the case. I finished the van in 12 weeks, drove back to Los Angeles, and I fell back into my same old routine. And about 6 months into it, I just said, let me try this YouTube thing. And
Wow.
I had footage from my build.
Yeah.
You know, I lived in my van for 6 months, and I
Before,
was working at a job. I went back to the grocery store, and they took me back. I went back to my valet jobs. They took me back. And 6 months I sat on that footage,
to,
and I taught myself how to do Premiere Pro. I watched tutorials. I watched a lot of YouTube. And my buddy is a YouTuber, and he kind of made it, he showed me the way, right? And because it's one of those things, you don't understand $1 million exists until you see it with your own eyes. I didn't know that people would watch people on YouTube until I saw it with my own eyes. And I met with a couple people that were famous, not famous, but like successful YouTubers. And yeah, and then I taught myself how to edit, and I released the video on my brother's birthday in 2018, and that was my first video, and it was also my most successful video to this date.
really?
Yeah, it's got like 2.2 million on it.
Man, it's just crazy that 6 month you're sitting, just having it sit there. And I
Yeah.
felt like that's kind of how we felt too, was that, when we built this, we recorded it all and we just still have it sitting there. We're still, we're working on getting it out now. But, once we started the podcast, I didn't realize that was going to take off the way it has, and then that I'd get the response from people that the way we have. So it's been like kind of a whirlwind just managing that. Like from the first video I recorded, I don't even think I knew how to edit on Final Cut Pro. Like I think I
Yeah.
had to buy Final Cut Pro to figure out how to use it, just to start trying to edit. So yeah, in all this, it's just, just trying to figure it out one step at a time.
It's and then once you learn it, you're like, oh, why did I waste so much time? But things happen the way that they're supposed to. That old saying, it's things, it's a reason. Obviously everything has a reason or whatever. And I'm glad that it happened when it did for me, and I'm glad I sat on that for 6 months. I mean, I don't like I got 1 million views on that first video in 3 months,
Wow.
and it's been obviously trickling since. Every now and again I'll get a comment on that very first video I did, but yeah, I mean, I've got what, 370, 80
Yeah,
videos now.
that's one thing. You put out content, like for
Yeah,
even for having your channel for just, even like 3 years, like that's a ridiculous amount of videos that you have on it.
I do. So the first year I had a goal. I said, okay, I want to do one. I first started with one every 10 days was my goal, and so that's 3 a month, which is not hard.
Okay.
And I had a list of all the videos that I wanted to do right when I started. And there's always that trick to podcasting too. It's like, don't put your first podcast out until you have 5 podcasts recorded, right?
Yes.
And then same thing with YouTube. Now, the thing is with like a vlogger, which is what I do, is I'm in the moment. So I had a plan of every video, right? I didn't have them recorded. I just had them planned. And it's funny, training for YouTube, I actually never watched like van life channels. I never did.
Oh,
I actually watched the style of videos of the people I wanted to emulate. Not the people, but like that style.
yeah.
So I watched a lot of vloggers, believe it or not. Okay, how are they vlogging? How are they interacting? How are they interacting with the camera? How are they doing this? How are they doing that? How are they editing? Is it rough cuts? Is it this, that, whatever? And you kind of like you build your own way doing it that way. I guess the best analogy I can give is like, did you ever play a sport or an instrument growing up,
Oh yeah.
Josh?
Yeah. Yeah. Basketball, soccer.
There you go. So basketball. Did you learn, like, the first person to taught you how to play basketball was either a parent or somebody like a figure of that like person, right? That taught you how to shoot, right? And then you go into middle school and that person teaches you. And then maybe you play like a summer league or a winter league. And then you play like And then you have a coach there, and then you have a coach in high school. You have like JV coach, you have varsity coach, you have a freshman, whatever. And then if you get good enough, you call it, etc. My point is you learn to play basketball or sport from multiple coaches. And these coaches, then you take all of what you've been taught and kind of form your own game out of it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same thing with YouTube or podcasting and all that shit. So that's I just fell off my chair. That's
Good.
I don't want to like I don't know if I'm trying to give advice or if I'm just trying to give people my like ideology behind it. But yeah, that's
I love
pretty
it.
much what
Life story, analogies, anything. It's all, it's all good, man.
yeah. So now with like, so if you were Josh, if you and I were friends back in 2019, I would have told you, okay, 2020, this is the year I'm going to focus on comedy and I'm going to start I'm going to finally get back into it because for the first 2 years, excuse me, for the first 2 years of van life, I was growing my YouTube channel because it was doing well. Why would you stop something that's not doing well?
Yeah.
And I always take like pages out of certain people's books. So I took a page out of Gary Vee's book where he tells you if you are doing social media, focus on one social media and then run with that, So if your podcast is doing well, kind of just focus on that. Maybe do some YouTube stuff, right? But your focus, your main thing is podcast, man. You're killing it. And so for me, it was like, okay, Instagram, it's okay, but YouTube is where I'm killing it,
Dude.
And then I can start diversifying into podcasting, or I can do blogging, or I can do Pinterest, or I can do any of those things after I hone in on my style and what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
that was what the first 2 years of YouTube for me was.
Well, it's great too. And you've built a platform, you've built a base that everything else you decide to do, you have a foundation to build off. You have people that are already watching, already paying attention. So it's like every time you start something new or build something new after you've already built something successful, you have a better head start, from the beginning.
I think so, but man, like every time like the video I just put out, it sucks because like I feel like I always have to explain myself. And somebody called me out. I'm so glad this person did. I have no idea who it was, but they called me out. They were like, Jarrod, can you please stop trying to please us? And there's a fly near me. They were like, can you please stop trying to please us? And I was like, and she was I think it was a woman. She was so nice. And she was just like so genuine in her comment. And I was like, I replied back and I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like, that's what I needed because like I am the type of person that tries to make everybody fucking happy and I can't make everybody happy. I just can't do it. And I feel like I'm a people pleaser and I have a big heart and I listen way too much to my comments and I just try to do that. And I got to stop. I got to separate that. I have to go back to making content that makes me happy instead of being like, all right, what do the audience want to see? What the audience wants to see is probably what I generally like to do.
Yeah.
So I need to go back to doing that.
Yeah, whatever makes you happy and if you're really enjoying, I mean, you can see when people really enjoy the content they're making and it, it comes through like that. So that's awesome to.
And so it's not that I forgot where I came from, but I need to go back let's go back to basics. Let me remember when I was back in 2018 and I was building, or I was doing random videos about the van life, the lifestyle. And it's funny, I barely did videos on my van. I was doing it all about around outside the van or doing whatever. And that's what I want to get back into is that kind of life. And then I want to incorporate my comedy into it. So I was saying to you, if you knew me, like 2020 was my year. I'm going to focus on it. And I actually was in Southern California on the beaches of San Diego for like 5 months. So in March, I was like, all right, I need to go back up to Portland and I'm going to use Portland as like a home base. And I'm going to start hit the stages there because I didn't want to do the comedy in Los Angeles.
Okay.
I didn't want to fight that rat race in Los Angeles. You're a very small comedian in a very large pool, I guess, right? And with my platform, I can do things other places. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to Portland. Let's do this. as I'm driving to freaking Portland, because I spent like a week on the road. Yeah, this small little thing called COVID hit us all, and shut everything down. So at that moment, I was like, "What am I going to do about my comedy?" And that's when I shut down, and I had to just stop. So 2021, I'm going back into it. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You know, God willing, unless something happens again, which I really hope it doesn't. But I'm actually going to be relocating, which I haven't announced yet. And I just did on your podcast.
At it, but and I think I even have a hint now, but
where am I going?
Oh, I don't want to say Colorado.
Actually, no. Did I tell you that?
No, you didn't. On one of them, someone said that, and you were like, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I have 2 cities in mind. When I made the decision, I forget when it was. It was probably like, I want to say like mid-January. I turned to a couple friends of mine and I said, I want to get back into entertainment. I miss it. I miss the stage and I want to get back into entertainment. I've always wanted to. And I said, let's do this. And they were excited for me. And they said, okay, what do you need to do? And I said, okay, well, I'm gonna relocate to a city that has great stand-up.
Yeah, this is where I'm trying to guess now. Now I'm going like, okay, like that's now
you were right on one of them.
My obvious guess is to say Austin, but that's almost obvious to guess right now.
You know, it's funny. A lot of people have said Austin. So this was the list of cities that I kind of compiled, that I was just like, all right, let me take a look at all these cities. And here's my checkbox. I'll give you what I want out of the city, and then I'll give you the list of cities and you can pick. So what I want is adventure and travel.
Okay.
I want, I guess, like a central location. I want a city, obviously. I need a city. I need access to really good open mics, and that I can practice and I can kind of get into that. And I want to be able to get to places within a day drive that I can not only adventure, but I can do like shows at. So I can either sleep in that city or even drive back home if I'm crazy enough. And climate, I'd rather not be. I'm weird like this. I'd rather be near a lake and a mountain than an ocean. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's my personality too, for sure.
Okay.
My guess is Denver there. I mean, that's just the guess that it's a big enough city. I think you could, and I don't know, I'm pretty good with geography, but I'm thinking you could probably get to Seattle, Portland, Sacramento, Texas, most places within a full day, but like a full day. Now that's not
all right.
That's not driving back at night. That's like within a 24-hour gap, you could get to those places.
I'll tell you what, I might leave off the city that I am very much leaning towards. And this is the thing, like my buddy Christian doesn't want me to share the city that I'm very leaning towards, only because he's like, you're gonna throw a shit ton of people off. And so maybe I'll leave that one off and then I'll tell you, and we can put it in if you want. But what on my list was Boise,
okay,
Bellingham, Washington, because I've got Vancouver and Seattle. Boise, Bellingham, Denver, Austin, Park City, Utah, and then the one I'm not telling you.
Oh wow.
The one I'm not telling you is probably going to win, by the way.
Is the one, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, even Park City, that's the one I wouldn't have thought of, but I actually like that. That's
so out of all of those, it was down to the 2 that I'm probably going to go with, and Denver. Denver is the other one.
Okay.
And when I started like digging into it, like Denver was a checking off box after box that I needed. And then oddly enough, I'm renting a house right now that's a duplex. Oddly enough, my neighbor is a massive ski bum. He's lived in Utah and he's lived in Denver. And he was like, Denver's great. However, it takes you like an hour to do any type of adventuring.
Okay. And people don't think that. They probably, Denver, we'll be right up. You know what?
Yeah.
I got to tell you this real quick. When we moved from up here north to Palm Springs when I was like 18. It was like, oh man, LA, we're less than 2 hours away from LA. We'll go there all the time. It's no problem. No, I think like in 10 years, probably like 15 times, you know. So it's like I know what it's like when people do that.
I mean, yes, very much so. It's funny, like, yeah. I thought I was going to go down to San Diego a whole bunch when I was living in LA. Nope.
Yeah, that's a drive, man. It seems
It's only 2 hours with no traffic, but the only time there's no traffic is between 1 and 3 a.m.
Yeah, which no one wants to travel at that time. Yeah.
So, and I really like Denver a lot. I like the idea of going there, and I am here. So here's my plan, which I in my last video I said I have a plan, and I wasn't going to announce it. So I'll announce it on your podcast.
Good.
My plan is to actually, my lease is up on June 30th. Okay. I'm taking the summer off, or at least as of right now. Plans can change. As of right now, I'm taking the summer off, and I'm going to live full time out of the Jeep for the summer.
Okay.
So July and August, Jeep life. And because I designed and built my Jeep to live full time out of, I might as well take advantage of it.
Waste that, yeah, for sure.
And I'm gonna travel, and I'm gonna enjoy, and I'm gonna just kind of live life, and I'm gonna go to events, and I'm gonna go to festivals, and I'm gonna just say fuck it. I'm gonna go if the borders open up. I'm going back to Banff, Canada. I want to go to Jasper. I want to go to Alaska. I don't know if I can do that all in the summer, but I'm gonna try.
Yeah, as you can. I mean, of course, depending on what's open, what isn't.
Right. And Montana is beautiful in the summertime. The other reason I don't want to go to Denver is because it's on the eastern side of the Rockies.
Actually, that makes a big difference. Yeah.
So to get to Utah, to get to California, so from where I am in Bend right now, which is actually 3 hours from Portland, to get to Denver from Bend is like 14 hours.
Yeah, and you know what? And during this, at some point, we have to talk about Bend, because me and my wife were, I think, like a week and a half away from moving to Bend about 10 years ago. We were really close. Like, we had U-Haul and everything, and I got a better job offer where we were kind of based off of not moving, and so we decided to stay. But that Bend is one city that we've always loved, and
I think you would have loved it. I think now you won't.
Interesting. Okay. Because yeah, it was 10 years ago. So
right, 10 years. From what I've been gathering from the locals here, it's changed a lot in the last 10 years in not a negative way. It's more of a city now.
Okay. Yeah, it's really grown. I
It's
know
grown a lot, and
faster growing like cities at the time. And I think I was doing dog training at the time, and it was one of the best places in the world for dogs, dog parks, things like that. So that was one of the real attractions to us up there, was just kind of the outdoor life. And it sounds like it's continued to grow. And
I love Bend. I mean, I think for me, it was the perfect city during our times right now.
Yeah.
It was my getaway city. It was my let's separate myself from everybody else. And I needed like a relaxing time. I needed this. It was kind of like a miniature vacation, right?
Yeah, and you picked a good time and a interesting way to pivot. I think you did a really great job of pivoting in this time with COVID happening, and kind of I get that it accelerated your plans, but you're able to just kind of adjust and say, okay, let's we'll sell the van, we'll rent out a place. And I mean, obviously it's worked out well, being able to, you're about to finish the Jeep, and then once the lease is up, you'll be able to kind of it seems like it all worked its way out pretty well.
My life is full of a lot of happy accidents. It's funny. I rented a place actually in Portland before I moved to Bend, and I hated it so much I broke lease. My friend Cindy was telling me, she's just like, she called me up one day, and this was when I already moved to Bend, and she was like, Jarrod, I'm so proud of you that like when you have something in your mind, you just fucking do it. And I don't know who I took that from, but I definitely have taken pages out of somebody's book that was like, why waste time? Why say like if you want to move somewhere, just go and do it. just go and do it. And, it was a happy accident that so it's so funny. My Bend realtor, my Bend person that I leased off of, they told me when I signed the lease, they were like, listen, we don't like signing leases starting in the wintertime, which is when I rented. And they were like, we like to re-up our leases in the summertime because that's the hot market. So she said, hey, I'm going to give you a 6-month lease and then we'll re-sign it after a year. I was like, or after the 6 months, we'll do a year. I said, okay, I'm committing to 6 months. I'll commit to 18 months. No big deal. I'm so glad I only signed a 6-month
Yeah,
lease.
that's going to be perfect now.
Yeah. So I've got 4 months left on this lease. And I'll just tell you right now, I'm about 70-30 leaning towards the 30 is Denver.
Okay.
The 70 is going to throw people off.
Okay.
And probably you too.
Cool.
I used to live here. It's Las Vegas.
Okay. Yeah, that's really central to all those places and a lot easier to get anywhere in the Southwest as well.
It's a very underrated city, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It is, first of all, anybody who's a climber that is listening to your podcast will tell you that it's one of the best climbing in the country. I'm not a climber, but where there's climbing, there's adventure.
Yeah.
There's camping. Las Vegas is in the middle of the desert. So I can go and find, Bureau land anywhere. I am a stone's throw from LA, San Diego, NorCal, Phoenix, Utah, Reno, I guess. So I can get to all those places within half a day to a day.
Yeah, you really can. And because of that, the infrastructure is pretty well in and out of Vegas, and flights are really easy in and out.
I was about to say the flights are everywhere.
Yeah, that's actually a great for anybody that travels a lot. That's actually a good thing to think about. If it doesn't really matter and you could be wherever you want, that might be one where there's easy.
And not to mention the airport is legitimately right there. It's like smack dab in the middle of the city. So it's super easy to get to. So that was another thing. Like Denver is great. And they also have a massive hub for planes, right? However, to get to like Denver International Airport is a haul unless you live close to it.
30 minutes outside the city. It's so far outside of Denver.
It's so bad. So, I mean, for me, I'm probably going now. Maybe people are going to be asking, Jarrod, I thought you were going to do in woodworking. Yeah, the woodworking's not changing. Actually, if I go to Vegas, it's going to be one of two things. I'm either going to be renting a house where I can use the garage as my shop, like I do now, or I'm going to be renting a high rise on the Strip, and I'll probably join a maker space where I can do any woodworking and make the lagoon tables that I've been making for people or something like that. Then again, the entertainment factor in Vegas is very good, and obviously doesn't hold a candle to like LA or New York or any of those places, but it's very good.
Yeah. There's a lot of options for living out of there, and as well with I had never heard of these like maker spaces till like a couple episodes. I was talking to somebody else and they were talking about that, and I had heard of co-ops for food co-ops and things like that, but like shops like that had machines and tools. I had never heard of that, so I thought that was a really cool concept that it seems like are popping up more and more places now.
Yeah, I hope they do. The thing is, the problem is the profit as like an owner of one of those isn't always the greatest. You have to be very cautious of that. That's actually, it's a good segue if you want to go into it, but that's kind of where I wanted to go with and I'm calling it ghost town. A part of my ghost town, my tiny home community, I wanted to make a maker space there because it's like, how many people do I know that want to come and work on their vans?
Yeah.
Why not like rent a, either weekly, monthly, daily, whatever it is. And then you have me and whoever's there. It's like, I want to make it a community where people can not only help each other, but we can all come together and we can all work together. We can, if somebody's staying in a tiny house that I have on site and I have a maker space there, it's like, what's stopping them from coming over and giving a hand and maybe helping out, or, a second set of eyes on something helps tremendously.
Oh man. Yeah. That second set of eyes and hands I mean, it's more than double. Like it really is. That
Yeah, it really is. And sometimes when I'm building something and it's like I need to step back and you know, it's not that Christian is less or more experienced than I am, but just I'm like, hey Christian, come and take a look at this. And he'll come in and he'll kind of look at it and I'll be like, all right, what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? And he'll give me his 2 cents. Sometimes I go with it and sometimes I don't. But just having that opinion will
yeah,
get your gears turning. And
yeah,
that's kind of what I wanted to do. So my whole ghost town, I originally was going to do it as like a buy land, right? An acre of land, 2 acres of land, 5 acres, whatever it is, and create an RV park out of it. And I was going to make a bunch of tiny homes, and that's how you do it. No big deal. And then there was going to be like two places or one place that was going to be my docile, my place of living. However, I kind of want to still be in a cityscape, you know. So my whole idea is to actually, if I could find some sort of abandoned building, and my dream would find like like a
I think I know where
decom-
you're going. Yep, I know exactly where you're going with that. Yep, a decommissioned either military base or silo.
firehouse.
Oh, firehouse. That is even different. Actually, that's cool, especially if you could find one of the old, like, just really tall, like 6-story square, like little square box ones. That would be
With And they obviously have massive doors. And if I can almost create not like a hotel, because that would be almost, I don't want to get into that game, but like a tiny house van community where it's a firehouse or whatever it may be, maybe even just a warehouse. That's my home in Dawson. And then like in the backyard, there's a couple tiny houses that people can rent out or whatever it may be. So that's kind of my like maybe long-term vision, but I think I'm years away from that because you and I talked about this, like just the zoning and the permits, oh my goodness, the permits alone just take an exorbitant amount of time that just isn't worth it. And then money, like it costs money to do all this,
yeah.
you know.
Oh, it sure is. But I do like that idea. I mean, a lot of times, especially with these creative ideas, and it kind of fits in with the entire idea of tiny living altogether. And we were talking earlier about shipping container homes and different, like,
Yep.
I love recycling. I love the idea of finding something that, like that, or like you're saying, like even an old firehouse, an old abandoned building, something that has not no value, but little or lesser value. Somebody that doesn't see the potential of what, a place could be. And for somebody like you to come in with that and say like, no, 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 I got an awesome, vision for this.
Yeah.
Well, I think that'll be cool. And I think that's a
Yeah.
great area. Like you said, I mean,
I don't know if I'm going to do Vegas. I just know that like I'm going to Vegas just to do the entertainment thing and do like that. I'm centrally located to everything. And, I'll probably sign a lease, for a year and I'll probably live on the strip, like I said. And why not? I'm not 40 yet. I'm still in my 30s. So I'm going to try it. And I'm single, and might as well try to enjoy it the best that I can while I can. So I haven't decided where I'm going to do that,
oh,
that structure,
yeah.
but Denver would be a cool place because they have a lot of character in, in the arts district.
Okay. And
Um yeah.
I was gonna say as well as knowing the idea that you have, it kind of gives you some freedom to look and try to find if you're looking for like a decommissioned fireplace, you can
Yeah.
look out at what's available around certain areas.
Yeah. Austin is another good place, Austin, Texas. The thing is like the reason I don't talk about this on my channel is because I feel like everybody wants it tomorrow. So I can't do it. I'm like, guys, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, at least
So
here we can give people a place to give their sneak peeks and their big reveals for later, I guess. Well,
I
man,
do.
Jarrod, I really appreciate this, man. I hope nothing but the best for your channel. Let's stay in touch. Let's keep doing this as often as we can, man.
Yeah, Josh, I definitely thank you for having me, buddy, and I definitely will do it again. I'd love to be back. Thank you.
Dude, I appreciate it so much.